Rightio, it's about time I put out another video, and this one is directed to Flat Earth Banjo, USA, Japan, Brazil, that guy, and he put out a video about 2 years ago now, which has 115,000 views actually. 6 emergency landings that prove the Earth is flat. Alright, so here is the list of 6 as he presents them, and obviously his thesis is that if we were on a globe, then these flights should have landed at other emergency airports rather than the airports that they did actually land at. So here are the 6 and we'll go through them one at a time. Alright, first one, China Airlines from Taiwan to Los Angeles, and it landed in Anchorage. So from Taiwan over here over to LA. Now in each of these examples I have drawn the Great Circle route in green, so that's what it should look like on a globe, and I've drawn the Flat Earth route in red, which is what it should look like on the AE map. Alright, so it did land in Anchorage. Banjo says that it should have landed either in Honolulu down here or maybe turned back to Sapporo in Japan. First thing to notice is that in the article that Banjo presents, he says that it is a 19-hour flight, and apparently the woman went into labour 6 hours in. He thinks that is therefore a third of the trip, where in actual fact this is a 12-hour flight. So going into labour at 6 hours means that you are roughly halfway. So on a globe Earth you would be roughly here when the woman went into labour. On a flat Earth the woman went into labour roughly here. So the only real options we have from this point on a globe is to go to Sokol in Russia or up to Anchorage in Alaska. It is quite a long way, quite a large detour to Honolulu, so that's not an option, and at no point during the flight is that the best option. Alright, so let's go to number 2. And that is the Cathay Pacific plane from Hong Kong to LAX, and it landed in the Aleutian Islands. This was actually where the plane had some smoke coming out, so it was a real emergency where they had to land at basically any airport that would accept them. Banjo thinks they should have landed again in Honolulu, and that's if you look at the Great Circle route, here is that route, and here is the route on the AE map. I don't know how Banjo drew a line on his little beach ball to make Honolulu the closest airport, but as you can see, Shemya, which is the airport that they actually landed at, is right on the Great Circle route. In fact, only 127 nautical miles from the Great Circle route. Honolulu, on the other hand, is 1,650 nautical miles away, and that's huge. This one actually is very good evidence for the globe Earth, because if we were in fact on the AE map and flying from Hong Kong to LAX, at no point on that route is Shemya the closest alternative. You've got Ugolny, which is a fairly common place for emergency landings. You've also got Anchorage, Alaska, and you've got these other 2 that I haven't marked, Vladivostok and Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky. So all 4 of those airports are better options than Shemya on this flight route on the AE map. But before we go to number 3, you've got to check out this video. This is actually from a guy who was on that flight, and he'd made a few YouTube videos while the shit was going down. It is pretty intense. Alright, so number 3, Qatar Airways from Chicago to Doha and made an emergency landing in Moscow. Banjo said that it should have landed in Spain or Portugal or maybe even North Africa. Again, the green line is the Great Circle route on the globe, and the red line is the straight line route on the AE map. So again, his idea of what the Great Circle route looks like on a globe is way off. Stop using that fucking beach ball. Don't even use Google Maps. Definitely use Google Earth. So the thing you'll notice first about this Great Circle route is that it goes straight through the Ukraine, and obviously commercial airlines have been avoiding that route since early 2014 when MH17 got shot down. So you have 2 options here. You can either go north of Ukraine or south of Ukraine. If you go south of Ukraine, you've also got northern Syria and Iraq to deal with. So generally, most commercial airlines will go the northern route. And obviously, if you go the northern route, then Moscow is a perfectly good alternative airport to land at. And that is where they did land. All right, number 4. This is an Emirates flight from San Francisco over to Dubai and made an emergency landing in Moscow. Banjo thinks that this flight should have landed in Spain or in Italy or maybe even in Turkey. And if you look over at his beach ball, it's this black line here, which is way off. If you look at the longitude for San Francisco and Dubai and add them together, you'll get very close to 180 degrees, which means theoretically that flight should go over the North Pole. And if it goes over the North Pole, then obviously Moscow is a very good emergency landing choice. Number 5. All right, this is Lufthansa from Shanghai to Munich and made an emergency landing in Moscow. Banjo, funnily enough, said it should have landed in Moscow if we lived on a globe, so I'm not entirely sure what his logic is there. The hilarious thing is actually that it did not land in Moscow. It landed in a place called Krasnoyarsk, and it has a population of over 1 million. The only reason I mention that is because this was a medical emergency. Basically, a 9-year-old girl fell sick and basically died on the flight. So they did need to land at a place with some medical facilities, as opposed to that Cathay Pacific flight that landed in the Aleutian Islands. Given that Banjo has completely fucked this one up, I'll give him a second chance. So if we were living on a globe, where should this flight have landed? All right, number 6 and the last one. Pakistan Airlines from Islamabad over here, all the way to London and made an emergency landing in Moscow. Banjo said that it should have landed in Iran, maybe Romania or even Germany. So again, the green line is the Great Circle route, and the red line is the straight line route on the AE map. So once again, you've got this issue of Ukraine, where it's basically avoided airspace. So you have the option again of going south of Ukraine or north of Ukraine. In this case, the obvious way is to go north of Ukraine, and therefore makes Moscow the perfect location to make an emergency landing. So out of 6, how many did Banjo get right?